concludes all operations of the emergency alert system. All stations may now resume regular programming.
For expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy.
Okay, so technocracy is not capitalism and is, in fact, its polar opposite. The two are mutually exclusive. So why exactly has the Pope introduced a new name for sustainable development, aka technocracy? Well, it's because it is the ultimate deception to lure people into accepting a remake of capitalism while the true intent is to, in fact, murder it. This is comparable to the mythological sirens of Greece calling out to passing ships and luring them to their doom. So the idea that there is an agenda for global government among the financial and political elites of the world has long been called a conspiracy theory, mainly within mainstream and the establishment media. And sadly, even when you can convince people to look at and accept the evidence that banking institutions and certain politicians work together for their own purposes, well, many folks will still not entertain the notion that the ultimate goal of these power mongers is one world empire. They just simply cannot wrap their heads around such a thing. People will say that the establishment is driven by greed alone, and that their associations are fragile and based only on individual self-interest. They will say that crisis events and shifts in social and political trends are random, not the product of deliberate engineering. They will say that elitists will never be able to work together because they are too narcissistic, etc. All of these arguments seem to be a sort of coping mechanism for the public to deal with evidence they cannot otherwise refute. When the facts become concrete and the powers that be admit to their own schemes openly, many people seem to revert to confused denial. They don't want to believe that organized evil on such a scale could actually be real. If it did, then everything they thought they knew about the world might be wrong. For many years, the agenda for global governance was only whispered about within elitist circles, but every once in a while, one of them would speak out in public. Perhaps out of arrogance, or perhaps because they felt the time was right to ease the populace into accepting the possibility. And whenever they do mention it, they call it the New World Order, the Liberal World Order, the Liberal Economic Order. And really, they have many names for it. And we've heard this talking point from world leaders like George H.W. Bush to Barack Obama to Joe Biden or Gordon Brown and Tony Blair. Most global leaders have in fact given speeches talking about the New World Order. And we can't forget that money and political elites like George Soros and Henry Kissinger have mentioned the New World Order incessantly over the years.
The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
I think its task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't just a crisis.
It's about the future of Europe and a new world order.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
But today, with Asia already outproducing Europe, India and China are clearly becoming part of our new order.
We are now facing a common challenge. And the challenge is how to build a world order for the first time in history on a global basis.
So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
Good evening, everybody. President Obama and British Prime Minister Gordon today calling for a new world order to tackle our global economic crisis.
One of the most revealing quotes on the agenda comes from the Clinton administration's Deputy Secretary, and I quote, "In the next century, nations as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. National sovereignty wasn't such a great idea after all." Now, he also adds in that same article from Time magazine, and I quote, "The free world formed multilateral financial institutions that depend on member states' willingness to give up a degree of sovereignty. The International Monetary Fund can virtually dictate fiscal policies, even including how much tax a government should levy on its citizens. The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade regulates how much duty a nation can charge on imports. These organizations can be seen as proto-ministries of trade, finance, and development for a united world." So, to understand how the agenda works, I offer a quote from Globalist and Council on Foreign Relations member Richard Gardner in an article in Foreign Affairs magazine in 1974 titled "The Hard Road to World Order." And I quote, "In short, the House of World Order will have to be built from the bottom up rather from the top down. To use William James' famous description of reality, it will look like a great booming, buzzing confusion. But it is a way to run around national sovereignty, eroding it piece by piece. It will accomplish much more than the old-fashioned frontal assault." So, the NWO has since changed its name multiple times as the public grows increasingly wise to the conspiracy. It has also been called the Multilateral World Order, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the Great Reset. The names change, but the meaning is always the same. In the past 2 years, in the face of extensive global crisis events, the New Order establishment globalists have been talking about has, in fact, arrived, and with almost no fanfare or mention in the mainstream media. The beginnings of global government already exist, and it's called the Council for Inclusive Capitalism. So lately, we have all been highly focused on the World Economic Forum and their role in this global government agenda. And it's mainly because World Economic Forum head Klaus Schwab is a loudmouth, and he can't seem to help himself. He talks openly about their future plans for centralization, and I, for one, am glad he does. As we have all noted in the past, the elites within the World Economic Forum got way too excited about the current medical predicament, thinking that they had the perfect crisis to implement numerous globalist policies in the form of a great reset. As it turns out, it was nowhere near as deadly as they initially predicted during Event 201, and the public was not as submissive and compliant as they had hoped we would be. And perhaps the World Economic Forum let the cat out of the bag far too soon. So onward we go, with crisis after crisis like dominoes falling until we get to the one event that they think will drive the masses to accept world governance. And while the World Economic Forum is attended by top-level globalists, they seem to be more of a high-level think tank. The Council for Inclusive Capitalism, however, appears to be more about implementation rather than merely theory. The founder of the group is Lynn Forester de Rothschild, member of the infamous Rothschild Dynasty that has long been monetarily involved in influencing governments for generations. Pope Francis in the Vatican publicly aligned with the Council in 2020, and one of the primary narratives out of the Council for Inclusive Capitalism is that all religions must unite with the leaders of capital to build a society and economy that is fair for all. Yeah, I'm sure that's what they're doing. They just want to make society and the economy fair for everyone. Sure. In other words, the purpose for inclusive capitalism is to con the masses into accepting a rebranded version of communism. The promise will be that you won't have to worry anymore about your economic future, but the cost will be your freedom. So, the Council for Inclusive Capitalism is led by a core group of global leaders that they refer to as, and I quote, the Guardians. No, I'm not joking, that is real. Members of this group have included MasterCard, Alliance, DuPont, the UN, the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association of America, CalPERS, BP, Bank of America, Johnson & Johnson, Visa, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Mark Carney, the Treasury of the State of California, and many more companies from around the world. The list is extensive, but what it represents is a kind of corporate-led government with a Congress of corporate representatives, mixed with pliable political leaders. One of the top missions for this council has been to change our economic models to promote equity and inclusion. Hilariously, proponents of this agenda argue that too much wealth has been accumulated into the hands of too few people, and this proves that existing capitalism does not work. Yet, they are the very people that rig the system to centralize that wealth into their hands. They are not capitalists. They are an aristocracy. I mean, do you really think that these people are going to build a whole new system that does not continue to benefit them? Of course not. If you have ever wondered why the Pope has been pushing woke ideology, climate alarmism, and of course, a one-world religion rhetoric in conflict with traditional Christian doctrine. This is why he's following the dictates of the Council for Inclusive Capitalism and, of course, the Great Reset. Another mission of this council is to enforce carbon controls and taxation in the name of climate change, with the purpose of reaching net zero emissions. I mean, as we all know, net zero carbon will be impossible without a complete upheaval of our economy and industry, along with the debts of billions of people in the process. It is an unattainable scenario, which is exactly why it is perfect for the globalists. Humans are the enemy of the earth, so they claim. So of course, we need to let the elites control our every action to ensure we don't destroy the planet and ourselves. But there is one massively important caveat, and that is that this process will never end, because there will always be carbon emissions to deal with. So as we said, members of this council include the head of Bank of America, who has openly suggested that they don't actually need governments to cooperate in order to meet their goals. I mean, they are openly saying that corporations can implement all of the social engineering without political aid. In other words, it is every definition of shadow government. It's a massive corporate cabal that works in tandem to implement social changes without any oversight. As noted, we've already seen this with the spread of woke ideology by hundreds, if not thousands of corporations working as a hive. Okay, so is the Council for Inclusive Capitalism the final form of global government? No, probably not. But it is the beginning. A government by corporations and money elites for corporations and money elites. It bypasses all political representation, all checks and balances, and of course, all voter participation. This is conglomerates and their partners making decisions for our society unilaterally and in a centralized fashion. And since big business acts as if they are separate from government rather than partners with government, they can claim they are allowed to do whatever they please. However, with corporations and globalists increasingly showing their true colors and acting as if they should be in charge, the public must hold them accountable as if they are a part of government. And if they are found to be authoritarian and corrupt, they must be overthrown, like any other political dictatorship. Once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals or Subscribestar. However, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and of course, I do hope you have a good night.